It's been a while since we've heard from Steve Harvey, and he's just done an interview on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharpe. During their conversation, Harvey touched on his time on the Kings of Comedy tour, specifically his frustrations with the lineup and the difficulty he had following Bernie Mac. Now, we're all aware of the problems between Steve Harvey and Bernie Mac and their issues with each other that would extend far past the tour. There were rumors that Harvey attempted to block Mac from starring in Ocean's 11 back in 2001. Harvey's interview on Club Shay Shay would be the first time we've heard him address this at length. Today we have our comedy hype analysts Danielle Miller, Capone, and Pierre calling to the show to give their thoughts and reactions. But first, let's take a look at this clip.
And so the first year was rough because I wanted to switch up sometimes.
Right.
You know, we all kings.
You wanted to go first, maybe go first sometime, go in the middle.
Hey man, let me sit in the rocking chair.
Right.
Let me be second.
Right.
Bernie sat in the rocking chair. Man, because you got Sid, warm him up, Bernie in the rocking chair. You closing behind these dudes is rough.
Is that where you and Bernie butted heads?
That was our only odds. That was our only odds. Because man, y'all got to give me a chance to win too. Me and the bros is arguing because I'm saying, bros, 30, 30, 30.
Right.
90 minutes. Y'all got to help me. 40, 48, 15-minute intermission, here I come. So the argument was, Steve, you going last again. I'm going, hell no.
No.
No, man, we all getting the same check.
What happened? Why did it end?
After the movie, man, that was probably...
Blessing and a curse?
Yeah, the four of us. It was the largest comedy movie ever in the history. It was the largest comedy tour in the history. But these white boys came along called Blue Collar Comedy Tour. And they said, we gonna show them kings who the real kings is. They couldn't fuck with us. They wasn't even close. The thing that the Blue Collar Comedy Tour did was they stayed together. We split up. You know, dudes felt like they was movie stars.
I don't want to waste any time. I want to get straight into reactions. Pierre, I'm coming to you. What's your reaction to it? And do you think it was justified for Steve Harvey to feel the way that he felt about the lineup?
Yeah, pretty much so. He was right. I mean, it was some fire. No one really wanted to go behind Bernie Mac when Bernie Mac was as hot as he was at that time. Really wasn't no one able to really follow him. He had his hand on the pulse of black people, what they wanted to hear. I don't blame Bernie wanting to switch it up, but not Bernie, but Steve wanting to switch it up with a rotation like that. So it was smart to bring in a host, and him being the host, that was a smart move to do. And because the host, you only got to do your thing, a couple of minutes, bring the next person up, do a couple minutes, bring the next person up, a couple of minutes. So just in case it ain't working for you, you got a place to bail out to bring the next person up. But it was a smart move to rotate that lineup, and then for Steve to be an MC when the next couple of years later.
Yeah, Capone, let me bring you in. Same thing. What's your reaction to it? And do you think Steve Harvey was justified to feel the way he did about the lineup?
Hell yeah. After Bernie get off, like Pierre said, shit, show almost was over. Bernie, no matter what spot he was in, he put it on. And they knew it.
Yeah, and I think too, like I said, this is the first time we've heard from Steve Harvey to speak specifically about this beef with Bernie Mac. So let me bring you in, Danielle. You know, what's your reaction to having some more of the backstory of the beef between Steve Harvey and Bernie Mac?
I still don't understand why there was a heavy beef with them after listening to that, because it's just a conflict about who closes. And I agree with Pierre and Capone. It's like, after following up Bernie Mac, it's sort of hard to do. It's very difficult to do following up Bernie Mac. So I feel, Steve, in which, they wanted that to switch up. But I just don't see where the beef was still justifiable. It's just the differences in business. I don't know I still don't get where the beef spurred from.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. Pierre, I want to come to you and ask, to help us, bring some understanding to Capone, I'll come to you as well. Are there any misconceptions when it comes to a headliner of the show? Or, what's even the difference between a headliner and a closer? Why would there be a beef there between Steve Harvey and Bernie Mac?
I don't know. The lineup thing can be something. Yeah, it's important. A show's supposed to flow a certain way. It's supposed to, have a crescendo. First comic, blah, 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 blah. And you don't really want to put comics on against each other that are similar, right behind each other. You want to kind of, change it. As me and Capone know, I mean, if there was a comic that came out with the gangster persona as a comedian, Capone might not want him to be right there. Some people don't, or whatever the case may be, might touch such similar topics. But I do agree. The lineup is very important, man. A show is supposed to, have a crescendo, supposed to rise up. Even if you have all those kind of comedians who are so funny, you're not supposed to let one comic bring it down. And you got to make sure you're wise of the order and know how it should flow as a promoter, and not just put people together and just put them on. It is it's a flow. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and I can give you some perspective there, Pierre. So Steve Harvey did go on to say that he didn't want to do movies. That wasn't his thing. If anything, he did want to step into TV and kind of stay in that space. So that's why, at least on his behalf, and we'll talk about from Bernie Mac's perspective as well, from Steve Harvey's perspective, that's where the beef came in, because, they wanted to go on, and he would specifically say, in this clip, he would say, some people wanted to go on to be movie stars, and that's not something Steve Harvey wanted to do. He didn't want to do the movie thing. But yeah, let me come to you, Capone, because we see this in this situation with Steve Harvey and Bernie Mac, right? But recently, we even saw this with DL and Monique, where there was some beef between them because of that headliner and closing. So could you give some perspective and some understanding as to, are there any misconceptions when it comes to that? And what's the importance or the difference between that headliner and that closer that would cause some beef between comedians?
You got egos. There are guys who been doing it a long time that feels that the respectable thing is for them to close. And you got guys such as myself who know once I hit that stage, it's going to be pretty hard for somebody to follow me. So I guess with my ego and their longevity, it becomes a clash. And that clash, now I kind of, grew out of it where I don't have to go last. But when I do go, I hope you can bring it, for the sake of the show. But a lot of times the egos kick in when you got somebody who might have been doing it a year longer than you, feel like, I got the time, man, let me close, even if they know they can't follow you.
So let me ask you this, Capone. Have you experienced, a specific situation where there was some issues with the headliner? And if so, how did you all resolve it? Because we saw with DL and Monique, we saw how that played out. How did you resolve it? And then Pierre, I'm going to come to you.
I've dealt with it several times. My thing is, my main concern is if he's getting paid more than me.
There you go.
He closing.
There you go.
A lot of guys, I've had guys come up, hey man, you dressed the part and I just got on this. Making up all kinds of excuses. And there are some who just going to take that challenge. But my thing is, you're not going to get an argument out of me if you are getting paid more than me because you've been in a couple of more movies than me. So do your thing.
Pierre, it seemed you wanted to chime in. I heard you say, there you go. Can you add to that?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. It's not always about who has the longevity and who is new and all that. It's who's getting paid the most. Because I know some comics, if they find out they're not getting paid the most, they don't want to go last. They're like, well, he getting paid the most. I don't care how sorry he is, how good he is. He's new. He might be an Instagram comic. But if he's getting X amount of money more than me, then some of those comics are like, I'm not going last. We feel like sometimes whoever gets paid the most should go last. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. What it is who puts the asses in the seats. So if I'm going on a show with an Instagram comic who's funny as hell, he's putting in most of the people in the seats, then the most promoters are going to be like, look, P, I want you to end the show, man. I know you're better than him. You're funnier than him, but he's bringing all the people in here, more people than you are. So you got to go, after him. And some comics don't like that. They're like, man, some comics want to choose by who's making the most money should end the show. But it's not always like that. Sometimes it's what the promoter feels like, hey, if this guy's selling out more tickets, he's not as funny as you. So he ain't going on last. And then you gotta make a stand, Yeah,
no, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and I appreciate the insight. I think that definitely brings a lot of value. Now, Danielle, I want to bring you in. I can't imagine with a beautiful background like that you ever have to deal with much ego, but I know it does happen. It does happen, but I'm very interested to know, Danielle, like in your industry, as you're growing through this, have you ever had to deal with egos? And if so, how have you been able to work through that?
Yes, boy. like dealing with egos is a daily thing. And that's why I said, in terms of like who with Steve having beef for Bernie about him closing, I don't understand that because that's a personal difference. When we're talking about egos trying to get a job done, how I deal with it is the point blank period. We're trying to get a job done. Your ego has nothing to do with me. I know why I am here. You know why you are here. We serve a purpose. Let's get this purpose done and let's move on. We never got to talk to each other again. We cool. I understand that you feel like, especially, and I don't mean to say it like this, but as a lot of times as a female, sometimes, you know, you will, especially a young female, you would be in a room with older men and they will assert their authority. But again, it's not you coming combative at the situation, because how they feel is how they feel. You have to stay professional, you have to stay with it, and you just have to get the job done. Just get it over and done with. Let's say bye, let's make our money and call it that.
Pierre, let me let you chime in. Go ahead.
Real quick, something that Steve said that stood out to me, and I don't know if y'all remember hearing him say that. He said he had asked to switch the rotation around, but Bernie did not want to go last. So Bernie has the ego too. You have to realize that he was in the sweet spot and he wanted to make sure nothing was going to happen to him in his sweet spot. That was the first time out. So the first time out, everybody doesn't know how someone's going to flow better than the next person. But once Bernie figured, hey, me going in this spot is the sweet spot, and Steve Harvey's asking, can y'all switch with me sometime? And Bernie's saying, no, man, I'm staying in the sweet spot. That's about ego too. Trust me. Now, after the tour went around and Bernie realized, hey, man, I'm just as strongest dude on here. The next year when they went around, they started changing and bringing a host and all that, Guy Torrey and all that, started trying to change around or whatever the case may be. But don't think that Bernie didn't have an ego too. You know, he was a bad boy, but he definitely had the ego too.
I think all of them had an ego, especially Bernie, knowing that the comedic power that he held. I just think that they didn't deal with it very well. I think that now in terms of longevity, staying around for 3 years with all that ego going on, I think it's very commendable. But it was only a matter of time before that tour broke up. It was just too much. It was just too much ego going on. And when you look at Steve and Bernie, yes, Steve could say he didn't want to be a big movie star, but Steve did know that he wanted to be something big, hence where he is today. And Bernie also had his intentions. Again, it's getting the business done and moving on. They both had reasons why they used that tour to get their name out there. It is what it is. All of them, not just Bernie and Steve, but also DL and Zed as well.
Well, I commend Steve for staying there long in the last spot. That's not an easy spot to get booed and have to work so hard for a whole year. That's not an easy thing to do. And I got to commend Steve for hanging in there for that first year at that last spot. It's not pretty.
Yeah, and something else Steve did mention was when the tour kicked off in December, he had just lost his mom, so his mind wasn't in the right space so like you said, for him to go through that, for it to be last, but then also to just push through losing his mom, because I can only imagine. But speaking of Bernie Mac, there would actually be an article in a GQ magazine where Bernie Mac would actually speak on this. And I want to read the article. It was back in 2003. And here's what Bernie had to say. So soon after he signed his TV deal, Bernie was cast as Blackjack Dilling, ex-con in Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 11. It was, by all accounts, a coup. Bernie had never been in a Hollywood blockbuster, and the rest of the Ocean's 11 cast had made almost every Hollywood blockbuster of the previous 10 years. According to a source involved in the project, someone representing Steve Harvey, Bernie's old colleague, called Soderbergh's office and asked him to reconsider the Bernie Mac role. Bernie would be busy with his new show, the caller argued, and Steve Harvey was more popular. Man, Bernie says, I heard all about it. I was told about it. You know, these people. Are you surprised? Tell me, are you really surprised? It's all about him. Go back and look at the Kings of Comedy tapes. Whenever he introduced his buddy Said, it was all about himself. He's referencing Steve Harvey. So yeah, I knew about it. Did it piss me off? Nah, you can't piss me off. You ain't that good. Capone, I want to come to you to get your reaction. So basically what's happening here in this article is it was a source told Bernie Mac that someone from Steve Harvey's camp called Soderbergh to say, hey, I don't think you should have Bernie Mac. Instead, you should have Steve Harvey because he's more popular. I would love to get your reaction on that. And also, you know, do you think they would have had more star power or more success if they did stay together?
I was waiting for that to come up because all along y'all was saying y'all don't know why the beef was. That was the main reason for the beef. The beef started when Steve Harvey, and everybody knows that is true, that his people did call up there and try to get the role. So the mere fact of him saying everybody was trying to be a movie star or whatever, he was trying to. He just didn't have the same opportunity. And that's where the problem came along at. And when Bernie found out, he continued to do the tour for a while, but it was hard to do it with knowing that he felt that Steve was a snake. And that's what the truth is. And that's where the beef really came from. It wasn't about the stand-up comedy thing. It was about moving forward.
Pierre, let me bring you in. Same question. I would love to get your reaction on this. But I'll also add, back in 2020, we actually interviewed Steve Harvey's old manager, who would deny these allegations and say that, you know, no one from Steve Harvey camp would actually call up there, you know, on our platform. So I'd love to get your reaction to it. What are your thoughts there?
You know, it can go both ways. I can see them doing it, and I can see them not doing it, whatever. You know, let's go with the thing that he did do. His people did do that. What we have to understand here in this business and in life, it's called self-preservation. I don't care how many people we all together laughing, holding hands. People are in it for themselves, okay, from day one. You don't come in with everyone else together holding hands, la, la, la. So no matter if we put us together, whoever we put together, people still want to strive and be number one, even in a bunch of people. At the end of the day, they still want to be number one. And I can see Steve Harvey wanting that part and doing what he got to do to get it. Not saying right or wrong, but it's what it is. It's business, you know, saying, hey, and yes, sometimes they snake each other and put stuff in each other's back. You know, trust and believe. I mean, see, people out here who don't know the business, maybe like, oh, I thought y'all was all friends. Man, it is a cutthroat business, okay? Just because you see people together holding hands, Tisha and Martin looked like they was a happy couple. They wasn't a happy couple. Shit, they didn't want to, off screen, they didn't want to talk. But when it comes to business, you smile, you do what you got to do. But behind closed doors, you cannot like each other. And that's what I can see that happen. His people probably said, man, let's get you in here, Steve, and let's do what we got to do. You know, we can now call it unethical or wrong, but Steve ain't the only one. His people ain't the only one. If they did it, ain't the only one. Trust me.
Now, I would like to note before I come to Neil, I love y'all for real. I love y'all on camera and off camera. I just want to make sure I say that. I know the business.
You wouldn't lose your job for one of us, though. I'll tell you that much. Someone said,
I fight for y'all.
And girl, you wouldn't be like, I'll quit off the show as long as they let them do their thing. I'll get off. Trust me.
I fight more than you know behind the scenes, more than you know, Pierre.
Now, I didn't say you didn't fight, but if they said one of us got to go for the show, girl, how about you? You'd be like, why me? I'm the moderator. Why me? Oh, yeah, you for the team. Bye. Nice meeting you. Okay. Danielle be moderating.
Danielle, let me bring you in. No, but seriously, Danielle, let me bring you in. I'd love to get your reaction, because that now we have a little bit more perspective as far as, you know, the late Bernie Mac's perspective on this. I'd love to get your reaction and thoughts after hearing it.
But Pierre, you really trapsy, you know. Like, I don't understand, where did they find you from? You're really trapsy. Yeah, it's trapsy. Huh? Oh, there we go.
All right.
So I think now it makes sense. Hearing Bernie, that article from Bernie, it makes sense. What I want to say is, I think Pierre's right. The business is cutthroat. What is wrong, though, is you cannot be on a tour with somebody and not tell them, like, look, dude, XYZ was the case. Like, if you do something, own it. Even in this interview, again, I don't know if Steve Harvey's people did it or not, but if they did do it, I think Steve should own up to it, because it is what it is. There ain't nothing you can do about it now. So that's what I would like to see. I would really like to see what is the truth behind this, because you saying that, you know, it was just a conflict of creative differences about who closes and who opens, that doesn't explain a beef to me. Like, there sounds like a deeper meaning, especially for people to talk about it this for so long. And then for Bernie to say that in an article, there's way more to it than that. Again, Uncle Steve, what we prefer is just like, what's the root of this beef? It cannot be just who closes and who opens. I'm sorry. And that's my thoughts on that. So Bernie's sentiments, if he had beef, if that's what was happening, his beef is valid, because if we on the road and we touring together, yeah, we might not be friends, but own what you're doing and tell me what you do. Like, tell me what you did if I ask you about it. So that's my comments on that.
Yeah, so let's close out. Capone, let me ask, do you think the Kings of Comedy should have stayed together? And do you think they would have been successful if they did?
I mean, they were successful.
Well, yeah, you're right. Continue to be successful because they were the top. You're absolutely correct. My apologies.
Of course, I think sky's the limit. All it would have been pretty much just more money being made. If they would have stayed together, work out the kinks. I mean, like he said, they were the #1 tour in Black comedy history. And you can't take that away from them, no matter what the beef was.
That's true. Pierre, I love to hear your comments. I see you smiling. I love when you smile because I know you're about to say something interesting. What are your thoughts? Do you think they should have stayed together?
This is for Danielle, because she obviously not hearing what Capone said. He said the beef was because of the movie role. That's why they beefed. You said you don't know why they beefed. Capone just said it earlier. So you take these and we do this with it. We do this. Okay.
I think you need one of them as well.
Okay. So listen to what he just said. He just said.
I want Uncle Steve to own up to it.
Why
That's
the
what I
beef was
said.
there. You said I don't know why the beef. He just said why the beef was there. I don't know what trapsy means, but I know what Q-tipsy means. Okay. I come for, hey, you bring the smoke, I bring the smoke. That's how we do it here. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, they gave us a great tour. To say they would be any more successful, look at Steve Harvey, worth a couple $100 million. How much more successful can he be? We don't know what the great Bernie Mac would have been like. He might have been just as successful. You know what I'm saying? Look at DL successful. Cedric. To say that they could be more successful, I think they're successful enough. You know what I'm saying? We should be proud of where they are in their careers right now. They're great comedians. I'm glad I lived part of it. I was part of, to be alive during the time of the Kings of Comedy. They showed that, what 4 or 5 comedians together, great comedians could do. And to the point where another, what's that called? The country western one stole the idea. So, hey, it just shows you how great they could be. And I'm glad. I'm not going to sit there and worry about the pettiness of their arguments or what's, back and forth. The point is they came together, they did what they did, and it's historical. It was historical, and we have it on foot. We have footage of it. And so let's just love that moment. Let's love the fact that they did it.
And speaking of Cedric, he actually celebrated his birthday yesterday. So a happy birthday, belated birthday to Cedric, the entertainer there. But yeah, I was happy to talk about this one. As you said, they gave us something special. The blue collar boys or whatever they were called tried to replicate it, couldn't do it, and I honestly don't think that anybody else could either. But as always, I appreciate you all for chiming in on this topic. I love being able to talk about comedy with you guys because you give us so much insight. But speaking of comedy, I like to close out what you have going on. So Mr. Capone, all the success. I mean, you talked about it beforehand, but what do you have coming up? And of course, how can people follow you?
Follow me on Instagram, Comedian Capone. Very simple. Can't spell comedian, don't follow me. Coming up, a few shows, one in Long Island, in Detroit. Kind of going with some heavy hitters there. And that's it coming up right now. A few more coming up, but I don't have all the information.
That's all right. We got plenty shows for you to tell us. We got plenty shows. Danielle, I'm coming over to you. I mentioned the background. I mean, and every Tuesday, it's like I can almost guarantee that you and Pierre are going to make me laugh and I got to hold myself together. But what do you have coming up? And of course, how can people follow you?
What I have coming up is, of course, new episodes of Sis. They are going to be dropping this summer. So make sure you follow my YouTube channel. That's DENIELLE. You can follow me on Instagram at DEEA Miller. I think there's a 242 behind it, but it should pop up. Just look for the blonde, tall, headed girl.
And we love it. We love to see it. Last and certainly not least, Mr. Pierre, what do you have coming up? And of course, how can people follow you?
Yes. God willing, I'll be here tomorrow, on Wednesday. I love it. All right, I'll be this Saturday, April 28th, I'll be in Fort Lauderdale at the Lauderhill Theater with my man John Hinton, Overton, Joe Torre, Daphne Springs, my man Marvin Dixon from Florida, and myself. A nice lineup. We'll be performing, like I said, the Lauderhill, April 29th, this Saturday coming up. This week I have my man Alex Thomas on Pierre's Panic Room, so check him on over there. Check that out, man. Really good interviews. He got a lot of Hollywood stories. I'd be surprised about a lot of Hollywood stories. And like I said, you can follow me at Comic Pierre. That's COMIC PIERRE. And just catch me tomorrow on Comedy Hype. Hi, Danielle.
Not
I just want to say that Capone is my favorite comedian on the panel.
He's supposed to be. You're from the Bahamas. You don't know much. Bahamas. Y'all got one comic over there. You don't know a lot of comics.
We know when people are funny.
Mm-hmm. 3 days a week.
Y'all are hilarious. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank y'all for bringing the information and the laughs. I appreciate y'all so much. I love doing this. I really, really do. Again, thank you all for chiming in on this topic. You heard from us. Now we want to hear from you in the comments below. What are your thoughts about Steve Harvey finally addressing the fallout with Bernie Mac? For Comedy Hype News, I'm Symphony Thompson.
Put it in the comments, and why wouldn't you?
Please do.
Big fan of the Comedy Hype News Show? Well, now you can join us live in studio for lunch at Comedy Hype. Click the link down below in our description or go to our Instagram page and click the link in our bio for your chance to RSVP. I hope to see you here for Comedy Hype News. I'm Symphony Thompson.